Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans about their stories and their journeys. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Dani to the conversation. Welcome, Dani.
Hi.
Hi. How are you doing, Dani? You're right.
I'm good, thank you, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Yep, it's great to have you with me as well. This is the first of a series of special episodes of the podcast where we're going to be talking about change, linking it in, tie it into the book that I'm writing at the moment about change. So I'm so happy to have you with me, Dani. Dani and I, just very quickly, how did we get to this conversation? We know each other through mutual love, and we are both listening volunteers for the Samaritans in our hometown, so I won't share too much about it, but yeah, so it's nice to have you with me, Dani. I know we were talking about this just recently, actually, so great to have you. Anything you want to share just to start with, to let people know a little bit more about you?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, and yeah, we arranged this very quickly, so I'm not at all prepared, but I'm also ready.
A wonderful metaphor for life, isn't it? Not at all prepared, but I'm always ready. So it's great. I love this. So the context for these is around change. So as I mentioned in this very brief outline at the beginning, so I'm going to ask you the sort of the big question. The big question is always around sort of change, experience, or mental health and the journey. So I'm going to throw that over to you. Talk to me a bit about your journey with change in your life, if that's okay, Dani.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I thought change might be a good one for me to have a talk. I've changed careers quite a few times in my life. I'm 33, and I've kind of done 3 different things with my career since leaving uni. The first being that when I came out of university, I was already working in retail and I took a retail management job because that's what was planned for me. My degree was psychology, but at the time I was just ready to kind of move in with a boyfriend I had at the time, be earning my money and be doing something. So took a management job. I shortly after that decided I wanted to be a teacher. I can't say much thought was put into that. I remember I was sitting with a friend and she is a beauty therapist and she said she'd had a client in who'd recently become a teacher and that she was really enjoying it. And I looked at her and said, I could do that within a year because I've already got a degree. That sounds good. And I became a teacher. And I taught primary. And there were very good bits and there were difficult bits as well. But during that journey, I kind of knew, even from the training, it might not be where I wanted to be. But I thought, I've got here now, so let's go with it. Let's see what happens and let's give it a try. And I did a couple of years at a local primary school to me. I was living in Bournemouth at the time and I was living with a boyfriend. I'd had that boyfriend since I was 17 years old. And when I got to 27, we broke up. And that was in my first year of teaching. So that was a big change.
Yeah,
Going from someone who had been there, I've known the guy since I was 12 as well. So he'd been in my life an incredibly long time. And we'd lived together by that point for about 6 years. And yeah, the kind of world came crumbling at that point.
Yeah.
But I was always resourceful. And so I knew I needed to move into my own place. Not very good at living with other people. Housemates have never been really my thing. I got through at uni because I loved the girls to bits and they were one of the reasons I moved to Bournemouth because they both lived. So I had them in my camp, but I knew I needed to live on my own. So I went back to a shop that I used to manage and asked if I could be the Saturday girl there because I saw a advert in their window.
Yep.
And the manager by that point was the ex-Saturday girl that I had hired.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So, yeah. And so we'd gone full circle. And she said, yes, absolutely. So then I had 2 jobs and I thought I can afford a flat. So I moved into my own rental flat and wondered what I would kind of do next at that point. And I decided, if you're a teacher, sometimes you can go abroad and teach in other places. And so that's what I decided to do. And that probably then everyone's going to think that's what my change is. But no, I went to that with very high hopes. It was in Dubai. And I flew out very excited, had a big leave-in party that everyone had come to. Everyone treated it like a wedding I'd never had. It was great. Made a very big scene about it all and leaving and moving on. And a few weeks in, I quickly realized all of the teaching, like things that I didn't like, were exactly the same in Dubai, except they were just in the sun. Which didn't really make up for anything. And I had always struggled with anxiety and a bit of depression as well, kind of since I was in my teens. I'd learned a lot of like ways of getting through it and all of those things, but being out there kind of on my own, there was lots of girls, 15 of us were hired at the same time, and we all met in London, we all went out together. So there were lovely people there, but they weren't really people that I could kind of talk to on that level. And so it really got the better of me. And I decided after about 5-ish, 6-ish months that it wasn't for me and I was going to have to not do it.
Yeah.
Which was very scary. I felt very kind of, I guess, a bit ashamed that I'd made such a scene about leaving and then it wasn't going to work out and I was going to go back.
Yeah.
And also the fact that when I got back, I wouldn't have anywhere to kind of live or anything really along those lines. I thought to myself, I don't have a job there anymore. Like, I'm going to have to go back to my mum's, who's great, and we're very close friends. But I hadn't lived at my mum's since I was 18. So it was a very big change.
Yeah.
And that's where the change definitely comes in, along with the fact I knew I didn't want to teach anymore. So yeah.
So big change, right? Going back after all those years, I guess it was a safe environment, but it's also an interesting environment to go back to, right?
Yeah, so I just turned 29 and we did a nice birthday celebration for me in Dubai before I came back. And then, yeah, came back to a wonderful mother who is lovely. And then it was February 2020, which we all know what happens then. So yeah, so I was back home, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at all. Back in my childhood bedroom, knowing I didn't want to teach again, knowing I didn't want to do retail again, single, everyone kind of that I was close with didn't really live locally. And yeah, it was a complete change and it was a fresh start, but it definitely didn't feel like it at the time. So my mum gave me about a month of grace of letting me just do nothing and feel very upset. And she was brilliant, obviously she would have been. And she kind of got me through all of the awful feelings I was having about it. And she said to me, no one needs to even know that you're home. Don't need to worry about that. So for a while, I just was kind of off the radar and no one really knew where I was, and it was great. But yeah, so she gave me a month's grace, and then after a month, I started interviewing for new roles.
Yep.
I think after leaving there, a lot of the kind of context of me leaving Dubai was also not the greatest bosses that I had to report to, who were very, very unsupportive in the situation I was in. I wasn't the only person that left. One person left in the October half term, another left when I did. And my confidence was just an all-time low. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was going to do next. And I interviewed for all sorts of things and just kind of entry-level stuff, really. And I ended up getting a job at university as an admissions assistant, and it was a 6-month contract. But I thought, that's fine. I'll go in at that. And I remember my mum saying then, well, get to September and then you can start in a school again. And I was thinking, yeah, no. But yeah, that was kind of a bit of a deal, I guess, was that could happen. And maybe I just need some time to heal and maybe that'll be okay. And so I started in that job and I really liked it. I liked the people. I couldn't believe the lack of stress. I think all the jobs I'd had up to that point, because it's different, it's a different level, but I think for me, an office job and being sat behind a desk was actually just so relieving at that time, because the jobs I'd done up until that point were very much like customer or child and parent facing. Like you can't escape that. When those situations are happening, you're within them. Whereas when you've kind of got that separation, you know, no one's actually going to jump through that laptop and have a go at you. It's separate, really. And so that really helped me at the time. Everyone there was so lovely, so patient, kind, great bunch of staff. And then from there, things just improved so much.
Right.
After that first kind of 6 to 8 months, I got made permanent because someone left, and then I naturally got made permanent, so that was great.
You're cool.
And then a position in kind of managing a team came up, which I went for and I got, which was great. Like I had obviously managed people straight out of uni. Like I'd kind of forgotten all these things about myself because I'd just been in such a stressful situation.
Yep.
And so then, yeah, then I was able to have my own team. And there was other positions available at this university. If you worked full time, you could apply to be a warden, which kind of deal with mental health, and they deal with just behaviour as well of the students living on campus. And the perk of that was you got your own place to live in, and you got given a bit of extra money for the year as well. So I joined that, and I did that for a year, which was really great for me. It was something that kind of, as you know, I've worked on helplines and supporting others, and that's something I've done in other charities and things as well. So that kind of, and obviously being a teacher, like, you know, 18-year-olds aren't that different to 5 and 6-year-olds when they're fresh in and have their own independence.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of something that fell alongside that really built my confidence again. And when I left that, I then got a job managing a bigger team at another university, and that's kind of ended up being my career now.
Yeah.
So if it hadn't have been really for taking a jump and doing something that I thought was going to change my life, actually ended up changing my life in a very different way. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And we're here talking about it as well. And
Yeah.
that's testament to the journey. And I think there's a couple of things, if it's okay, I want to sort of venture into. It's nothing too deep and dark with that. But the thing that I'm listening to and I'm hearing that I find really fascinating is you talked about being resourceful. You've been through a number of, and for your, in your sort of younger years, in terms of the sort of very developmental years as well. Where does that come from? Why are you so resourceful? Why did you have the tools to be able to pivot from, retail to education to, where you're at now to going to Dubai? Yeah, all in a very small space of time, right? A lot of people live a lifetime and don't do that. How did you do it?
Yeah, I guess you're right. It is in a short space of time. And I feel like the past few years have then been incredibly stable for me. And that's been quite disconcerting because I have been someone who has jumped around a lot and done different things. And actually the job that I've been in now, I've been doing the same job at the same place since December 2022. And that feels like an exceptionally long time, and it's not. But when I've been so used to doing so many different things and kind of moving on and changing and not being afraid to do that, the stability is quite, I don't know, I'm coming to terms with it, I think, and realizing it can be quite nice to be in one place and for that to be okay. And the growth that you have when you do stay in one place is very different, and potentially better. But yeah, in terms of where that comes from, I think growing up with a single mum, I think, is a huge part of that. That's due to my father passing away, unfortunately, when I was very young. But my mum has always, I never had a stepdad. I think that's partly my fault. I told her I'm not having a stepdad.
Right. Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, okay." And yeah, I never had one. And she's raised me kind of completely on her own. And I think seeing her and her level of independence, her making those choices, has had a massive impact on me. But also I think just in terms of the type of personality I have, I'm not afraid to quit things. And I think that can be bad and that can be really good as well.
Yep.
Because if something isn't right for you and it's not kind of serving you, I haven't really been afraid to walk away from that and try something different. And that's not privilege awarded to everybody, but I've always managed to make it work when I've been feeling that. And then on top of that as well, because I have struggled with anxiety and depression, I've thought a lot more about how to be resilient and how to be resourceful.
Yeah.
And done a lot of work on things like that, and had therapy. I've got to count some of it to my lovely therapist as well. But yeah, I think just along the way, I've been raised in an environment where it shouldn't be scary to kind of be independent and do what's best for you. And I've been lucky enough to kind of have that opportunity whenever I've needed to just be able to walk away from things and try again.
Wow, I find it absolutely fascinating, Danny, I'm hearing your mum has been a big influence on your life here, and a lot of that resilience and that sort of resourcefulness sounds like possibly coming from her. Maybe I don't know how the
Yeah.
relationship is with her in the sense of growing up with her for you, but it sounds like you've had the chance to sort of be open. Do you find that's true as well? Sort of
Oh yeah,
being able to be open, maybe know
100%.
what's really happening, right?
Yeah, I think the thing is, me and her have always been incredibly close. I think when we talk now and we reflect often on kind of my childhood and things like that, I think she does have a bit of worry that maybe she shared too much with me too young and was, put that load on me as like a friend as opposed to a daughter and someone that she was caring for.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I don't think if I'd had the option, I would have had it any other way. Like I think it did have a big impact on me. I saw how she dealt with things and how she overcame things. And she's an incredibly strong woman. I think that's been a really big thing in my life. And she's also just been incredibly supportive of me. She's always said, you do what makes you happy. That's all she cares about. She wants me to be happy and doing things that suit me. Um,
Yeah.
and again, I think sometimes she thinks about that and thinks, oh God, maybe I should have pushed her in a certain direction or told her to stick to things or do. But I think in the end, everyone works out kind of where they're meant to be. And I think that's something that she really believes in. And she was, for her like generation, she had me late as well. She had me at 42, which obviously in those days was, we're seeing more of that now. But I think in her day, that was quite an older mother.
Yeah.
And with that, she'd lived a hell of a lot of life before I was born. She'd got married young and divorced at 23 and then met my dad, which was like not a thing you did back then. And then wasn't sure she wanted children. Her and my dad lived in the Middle East for 7 years before coming back to the UK. And then they decided they wanted kids like later on in life. And so, yeah, she had never really lived. I mean, as I say, now it doesn't sound that extraordinary, but I think back then it definitely was. And she's always been someone who's kind of not lived by anyone's particular rules and has done what made her happy. And yeah, I think seeing that has had a very big impact on me.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and it sounds like she's been through, and well, obviously a lot of changes, especially with your dad, and the challenges she would have gone through in that experience as well. And yeah, I think we do sort of learn through those behaviors of the people that we're closest to, don't we? And the sort of the experiences, albeit you weren't around for a lot of the experiences, when your mum was younger. But yeah, it's really interesting because this whole thing around change, there are many changes that we go through in life, and you've been through so many already, and look where you are now. And I hope it's a good place that you're at with what's gone on, and you can reflect on those changes and think positively about what's happened. And so how do you feel right now? I know you said about you're settled a bit more, but genuinely, how
Mhm.
do
I feel like I'm in the place I'm meant to be in at the moment. Um, working my way up and getting where I am now, and the job that I've got now is very much due to the boss I had at my previous place I worked, and because she moved across and wanted ideally me to be working with her again.
you?
And luckily I was able to convince the panel that was the right choice.
Yep.
But yeah, and so working for her, she's an incredibly inspirational person. We're very, very different. She is someone who does something and sticks at it and wants to see things through right to the end despite everything.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously I'm a little bit more floaty and she knows I'm a bit of a flight risk. But yeah, like it's the perfect person for me to work in under. And yeah, I love where I'm at, and that job allowed me to buy a flat. There's something I haven't mentioned. I moved out of my mum's, yay.
I've been wondering, yeah, is she still there?
Yeah. Not still there, darkening her door, no. So yeah, so I was able to buy a place off the back of the job that I've got, and obviously being able to live with my mum helped me save. And during COVID, there was nothing else to do but save, so that was great. So really, I think sometimes just where you're meant to be at the right time. And so yeah, I'm happy now. I'm always thinking about what my next move might be. And I obviously with Samaritans and then kind of any hobbies I have, there's always stuff I kind of want to branch out into. But we'll see what's next. But for now, yeah, I'm embracing a change that I made where maybe I've ended up in probably the place I was always meant to be. So, yeah.
Well, we can't ask better than that, can we? Sometimes, in this moment, this is where you want to be, and it's hard, isn't it? Because we think about change in the future and what's going to change again, and whether it's a career change, whether it's a life change, whether it's who knows. We really don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's great. Being right now in the present is sort of what I'm starting to understand more as well. I can plan for the future, but who knows what's going to happen then, and who's guaranteed it anyway. So that's good. How do you keep yourself in this place of happiness though, Dani? What do you do? Is it simplifying things? Is it just what's your go-to to help you through?
It's rituals over routines.
Okay. Yeah.
So I find anything that's too routine gets a little bit boring for me, or like on a so and so day, I get up at this time, I do this and this. But having the rituals that you always do with kind of when it'll fit in for you is good.
Yeah.
I love running. That's a really big thing in my life, and that's something that's I found when I moved back with my mum, and I didn't know what to do myself. And I think a lot of people probably took that up in COVID. Lots of couch to 5K runners, and that's what I did, and that's been something that's really stuck with me ever since. And I think, yeah, I could go on about running a lot, but I just think it's something that's massively improved my mental health and improved kind of my belief in myself. It might sound silly, but like knowing that I can run a half marathon makes going on a work call about a very difficult issue seem very minor. So I think, having that belief in yourself and realizing what you're capable of
Yeah.
physically makes you feel a lot more capable of anything. So that's something that I definitely do. I have a great little morning ritual of making my coffee. I do affirmations as well. I didn't know if I was going to admit that, but I do. Yeah. Every day I'll put on affirmations while I'm putting my makeup on. That's like my time when I like repeat my affirmations to myself. And then I'll do a bit of meditation every morning, only for 5 minutes, but it's still something.
Yeah.
I think it does reset me. And so having those little things, I've got a similar like evening routine for winding down. And I think those little things help me. And I think I've been so many places in my life now and so many stages. But I think I've got to a place now by doing those things. I know that if everything was taken away from me, I'd still have me and I still have those things, and it would probably be okay. And I
Amazing.
think that really helped.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And I really appreciate that. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with actually, and it's refreshing to hear that you have those things that your little rituals, routines and things. And the running, is such an important part of my life as well. And I know we've had those conversations offline from this as well. And for anybody listening, there is a little TikTok channel that Dani does have, which is incredible. I love it. It's so funny to watch them. I don't mean funny in the sense if you're going for a running, that's really, you're going for a run, that's really funny. But you just got a wonderful sort of vibe to you and the way that you sort of bring that across. So if anybody does want to go and check that out, I will drop it in the links to this as well, so people can go and follow you on there, Dani.
Yeah. These guys, I have 53 followers, so we'll be 54th, let's see.
A running influencer, who knew, amazing. You could be training us. This is fascinating, it really is. We are sort of coming towards the end of this conversation, albeit we can carry on after the recordings and beyond, but for this conversation, so as I like to close out these sort of chats, any final thoughts from you around the topic of change, anything you want to sort of share to help others to connect, to be aware of what to look out for, anything from you, Dani, anything you want to say to close?
I think I'd say that change is obviously it's inevitable, and I think don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid of making a change, or if a change is forced upon you, because although it was kind of my choice, I still felt like it was very forced upon me. But that doesn't mean that you can't turn it around, and that actually it might be the best thing that ever happened. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Well, that's great. So that'll be in the book. Dani's top tips. I think I'm just going to consolidate and bring them all together in this one. Like top tips of how to work your way through change. But you're absolutely right. So is people are afraid of change. We naturally as humans we don't like change because it's often painful and it's often something that we're not able to know what the future looks like. You've been through so many changes, Dani. I'm so proud of where you are in your journey and the journey you've been on and everything you've been through and the resilience that you've shown and the bounce back ability that's happened obviously at moments in there. I'm gonna put that in the book as well. And yeah, but listen, thank you so much for joining me with this. I really do mean that, and it's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, to hear more about you. Sending all the best to you and to your mum as well, who's obviously big part of your life, and yeah, happiness and health, I think, is the key. Is be
Thank
happy.
you so much. Really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. Lovely to see you. Take care.
Thank you.